Marcus Bennett adjusted his titanium Patek Philippe as he guided his midnight blue Bentley Continental through the winding streets of downtown Chicago. The late afternoon sun cast amber streaks across the leather interior, illuminating the woman beside him. Victoria Chase, 29, platinum blonde hair perfectly styled in a sleek bob. Designer sunglasses perched elegantly on her nose. She was everything he thought he wanted now. Beautiful, sophisticated, uncomplicated. The charity gala has a 3-month waiting list for tickets, Victoria said, checking her reflection in the visor mirror. I still can't believe you're the keynote speaker tonight. Marcus smiled, his steel blue eyes focused on the road ahead. At 42, he had learned that money could buy almost anything, including the appearance of spontaneity. His dark hair, touched with distinguished silver at the temples, caught the light as he turned toward her. Perks of owning the largest private equity firm in the Midwest, he replied smoothly. Victoria laughed, the sound light and practiced. You make it sound so simple. Simple. That's exactly what Marcus had wanted his life to become. After years of complicated relationships, demanding schedules, and emotional expectations he couldn't meet, simplicity felt like the ultimate luxury. His relationship with Victoria was 4 months old. Long enough to enjoy her company, short enough to avoid serious conversations about the future. I love how relaxed you are these days, Victoria said, reaching over to touch his hand. When we first met at the Henderson merger celebration, you seemed so intense. Marcus's grip tightened slightly on the steering wheel. Intense. That's what his previous relationship had taught him about himself, that he was too focused on work, too unavailable, too resistant to the kind of domestic life that others craved. The breakup had been painful but necessary, a clean cut that allowed both parties to find what they actually wanted. I've learned to appreciate the moment, he said, meaning it. No more pressure about weekend plans that stretched months ahead. No more discussions about holiday traditions he had no interest in creating. No more hints about engagement rings or family dinners that made him feel trapped in expectations he never agreed to carry. The crosswalk ahead filled with evening pedestrians, office workers heading home, couples walking hand in hand, teenagers laughing as they navigated the busy intersection near Michigan Avenue. Marcus watched them absently, his mind already shifting to his speech at the gala, when something made him focus. A woman was crossing the street, moving carefully through the crowd. She carried something against her chest. A small child, maybe 3 years old, bundled in a soft lavender coat with matching mittens despite the mild October weather. The woman's chestnut brown hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and she moved with the cautious precision of someone carrying precious cargo through a world full of dangers. Marcus's breath caught. Even from a distance, even with her head down, he knew that profile. The gentle curve of her neck, the way she held her shoulders, the careful, deliberate way she walked as if every step had been planned 3 steps ahead. Sophia Reynolds, his ex-fiancée. The woman he had left exactly 3 years and 4 months ago. Sophia paused in the middle of the crosswalk as the little girl began pointing excitedly at something. A street performer on the corner playing violin. Sophia bent her head toward her daughter, listening to whatever the child was saying, then laughed. That same laugh Marcus remembered from quiet Sunday mornings and late-night conversations. She kissed the little girl's cheek and continued across the street. Marcus. Victoria's voice seemed to come from very far away, the lights green. He blinked, realizing he had been staring. Cars behind him were waiting. Sophia had disappeared into the crowd on the other side of the street, swallowed by the evening rush of downtown Chicago. But the image burned in his mind, seared there like a brand. A daughter, a little girl who looked to be about 3 years old. Marcus's hands trembled as he pressed the accelerator. 3 years and 4 months ago, when they broke up, Sophia hadn't mentioned being pregnant. But the timing would be exactly right. You look like you've seen a ghost, Victoria said, studying his face with concern. Do you know that woman? Marcus kept his eyes on the road, his mind racing like a supercomputer processing impossible data. Had Sophia been pregnant when they separated? Had she known and chosen not to tell him? Or had she discovered it afterward and made the decision to handle it alone? The questions multiplied, each one more unsettling than the last. But underneath them all was a single devastating realization. The woman he had thought he knew completely had become a mother. She was raising a child, possibly his child without him, and she had looked content, peaceful, like someone who had found exactly what she was meant to be doing. "Marcus, are you okay?" "Sorry," he managed, forcing a smile that felt like cracking plaster. "Just thinking about work." But he wasn't thinking about work. He was thinking about the conversation they'd had 3 weeks before their breakup, when Sophia had mentioned her colleague's baby shower. "Don't you ever wonder what it would be like?" she had asked, watching him with those deep brown eyes that always seemed to see straight through his carefully constructed walls. "Having someone who's part of both of us?" "No," he had said and meant it. "I've worked too hard to build this life to complicate it now." She had nodded and changed the subject, but he remembered the brief shadow that crossed her face, the slight dimming of something hopeful behind her eyes. At the time, he had attributed it to natural disappointment. Most women her age wanted children eventually. Now he wondered if it had been something more specific, something she was already beginning to suspect but hadn't yet confirmed. Marcus pulled into the hotel's valet parking, his hands still unsteady. Victoria was already checking her lipstick, excited about the evening ahead. The gala, the networking, the social currency of being on the arm of Marcus Bennett, Chicago's most eligible billionaire bachelor. She represented everything he thought he had chosen. Beauty without complications, companionship without expectations, pleasure without responsibility. So why did his chest feel hollow? Why did the image of Sophia laughing with that little girl make his carefully constructed simple life feel suddenly, terrifyingly empty? As he handed his keys to the valet, one question echoed in his mind, drowning out everything else. What if the life he had been so determined to avoid was the only one worth living? What would you have done in Marcus's position? Would you have told Victoria immediately about seeing Sophia? Or would you have tried to forget and move forward with your new life? Drop your answer in the comments below. Sophia Reynolds shifted her daughter Lily to her left hip as she unlocked the door to her modest two-bedroom apartment in Lincoln Park. The late afternoon light filtered through the sheer curtains, casting soft shadows across the hardwood floors she had refinished herself during her pregnancy. One of many projects that had kept her hands busy while her heart was breaking. Lily stirred against her chest, her small voice muffled against Sophia's shoulder. "Mama, can we have mac and cheese for dinner?" "We'll see, sweetheart. Let's get you out of your coat first." The apartment was nothing like the penthouse she had shared with Marcus. No floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Michigan, no marble countertops imported from Italy, no smart home technology that responded to voice commands with unsettling efficiency. But it was hers. Every piece of furniture chosen carefully, every corner arranged with purpose. The warm terracotta walls reflected her belief that children should grow up surrounded by warmth, not cold luxury. She settled Lily onto the couch with her favorite stuffed elephant, Mr. Trunks, and moved to the kitchen. A compact space where she had learned to prepare meals while simultaneously entertaining a toddler, managing work emails, and somehow maintaining her sanity. The refrigerator was covered with artwork from Lily's preschool, appointment cards for pediatrician visits, and a photo strip from their trip to the aquarium last month. Lily's face pressed against the glass, mesmerized by the jellyfish. 3 years and 3 months. That's how long Sophia had been doing this alone. 3 years of sleepless nights during the infant stage, of learning to manage every crisis by herself, of singing lullabies at 3 in the morning while rocking a baby who seemed to take turns between crying and sleeping with no discernible pattern. 3 years of a love so intense it sometimes left her breathless. 3 years of not once regretting her decision to keep Marcus's paternity a secret. Her phone buzzed with a text from her best friend Rachel. "Drinks tomorrow? I can bring wine and pizza after Lily's bedtime." Sophia smiled as she typed back, "If you don't mind hearing about potty training setbacks, we're having a week." Rachel's response was immediate. "Kids have setbacks, friends bring wine, see you at 8. This was Sophia's support system now. Her best friend from college who had moved to Chicago, specifically to be closer when Sophia announced her pregnancy. Her neighbor, Mrs. Patterson. a retired kindergarten teacher who sometimes watched Lily when Sophia had work emergencies, and Dr. Michelle Torres, the pediatrician who had become something close to a mentor. A small circle but solid, people who showed up without being asked, who understood that love sometimes meant accepting help gracefully rather than drowning in pride. "Mama," Lily called from the living room. "Mr. Trunks wants mac and cheese too." "Mr. Trunks has very specific tastes," May called back, pulling the familiar blue box from the pantry, "just like someone else I know." Lily's giggle was the best sound in the world, pure joy, untainted by the complications that came with growing up. Sophia had fought hard to protect that innocence, to create a life where Lily could be simply a child, without the weight of her complicated origins pressing down on her small shoulders. The decision to keep the pregnancy secret hadn't been made lightly. For weeks after discovering she was carrying Marcus's child, Sophia had crafted and deleted dozens of text messages to him. She had driven to his office building twice, sitting in the parking garage while she rehearsed conversations that always ended the same way, with him offering financial support but not emotional investment, or worse, suggesting solutions that didn't align with what she wanted for her child. Marcus had been honest about not wanting children. He had never pretended otherwise, never given her false hope. The breakup had been initiated by him, but it had been mutual in the end because they both recognized the fundamental incompatibility of their dreams. So why would a pregnancy change that? Sophia had chosen to believe that forcing someone to be a father was no gift to anyone, especially not to the child involved. Lily deserved a parent who chose her wholeheartedly, not someone fulfilling an obligation with resentment simmering beneath the surface. "Mama, come see." Lily appeared in the kitchen doorway, her dark hair, Marcus's hair, Sophia thought with a pang, wild around her face. "Miss Trunks learned to do a somersault." "That's very impressive," Sophia said, stirring the pasta. "Mr. Trunks must have been practicing. He practices every day, just like me at gymnastics." Lily had started a parent and child gymnastics class 3 months ago, and it had become the highlight of her week. Watching her daughter's confidence grow, learning to do forward rolls, to hang from bars, to trust her own body, filled Sophia with the kind of pride she hadn't known was possible before motherhood. "The pasta needs a few more minutes," Sophia said. "Why don't you wash your hands and set the table? You can use the special plates, the butterfly ones, the butterfly ones." Lily raced off to the bathroom, her small feet pounding against the floor with the enthusiasm of someone who had never learned to move quietly. Sophia leaned against the counter, watching the water boil, and allowed herself a moment of reflection. She had Googled Marcus exactly once since their breakup. The search results showed him at charity galas, investment conferences, and society events. Always impeccably dressed, usually with an attractive woman on his arm. He looked successful, confident, and entirely unencumbered by the kind of domestic responsibilities that defined Sophia's days. She had closed the laptop and never searched again. Some people weren't meant to be parents. Marcus had known that about himself, and Sophia had learned to accept it rather than trying to change him. The greatest gift she could give her daughter was stability, not the chaos of a father who resented her existence. "Mama, the water's bubbling over." Sophia snapped back to attention, quickly removing the pot from the heat. "Good catch, baby girl. You're my little helper." "I'm a big helper," Lily corrected seriously. "Mrs. Patterson says I'm very responsible." "Responsible," Sophia gently corrected. "And she's right, you are." As they sat down to dinner, mac and cheese for both of them, with Mr. Trunks positioned in his own chair, Sophia felt the same contentment that had slowly replaced the grief of her broken engagement. This life wasn't what she had planned. It wasn't the life she had imagined when Marcus proposed with a 4-carat diamond overlooking the Chicago skyline. But it was real, and it was hers, and Lily made every sacrifice worth it. "Mama," Lily asked between bites. "Yes, sweetheart. Why don't I have a daddy like Maya does?" The question hit Sophia like a physical blow. Maya was Lily's best friend from preschool, whose father picked her up every day with elaborate airplane swoops and tickle attacks. Sophia set down her fork, giving Lily her full attention. "Different families look different ways, remember?" Some families have a mommy and a daddy. Some have two mommies or two daddies. Some have just one parent who loves them very, very much. Like us. Exactly like us. Lily considered this, her small face scrunched in concentration. But Maya says daddies teach you to ride bikes. I can teach you to ride a bike. We can start this spring when the weather gets warmer. Really? Lily's eyes lit up. With no training wheels? We'll start with training wheels and work our way up. How does that sound? That sounds good. Lily returned to her mac and cheese, apparently satisfied with this answer. But Sophia wasn't satisfied. The questions would only get more complicated as Lily grew older, more aware of the differences between her family and others. Eventually, different families look different ways wouldn't be enough. Eventually, Sophia would have to tell her daughter the truth. After dinner, after bath time, after 3 bedtime stories and 2 glasses of water and one final trip to the bathroom, Lily finally fell asleep with Mr. Trunks clutched against her chest. Sophia stood in the doorway, watching her daughter breathe, marveling as she did every night at the miracle of this small person's existence. Lily had Marcus's straight nose and strong jawline already visible even at 3 years old. But she had Sophia's brown eyes and stubborn chin. She was beautiful, healthy, and completely unaware that her father was one of the wealthiest men in the Midwest. Moving quietly to the living room, Sophia pulled out her laptop to catch up on work emails. Her position as communications manager at a nonprofit healthcare organization paid well enough, but the hours were demanding, especially now that they were preparing for their annual fundraising campaign. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Sophia, this is Marcus. I saw you today downtown. We need to talk, please. Sophia stared at the screen, her heart hammering against her ribs. He had found her number somehow. Of course he had. Marcus had resources most people couldn't imagine. The question was what he had seen, how much he had guessed, and what he planned to do about it. For 3 years, she had built a life predicated on the assumption that Marcus would remain part of her past. Now, with 6 words glowing on her phone screen, that assumption crumbled into dust. She didn't respond. Instead, she turned off her phone, checked on Lily one more time, and lay awake until dawn, wondering how to protect her daughter from a man who had never wanted to be a father. Marcus couldn't taste the Wagyu beef. The wine, a 2005 Chateau Margaux worth more than most people's monthly salary, might as well have been tap water. Across from him at the charity gala, Victoria was describing her latest interior design project, her perfectly manicured hands gesturing gracefully, but her words felt like background noise. All he could see was that little girl in Sophia's arms. You're completely somewhere else, Victoria said, setting down her glass with a delicate clink. Should I be offended? Marcus forced his attention back to her. Victoria wore a crimson gown that hugged her curves perfectly, her platinum hair catching the chandelier light. 4 months ago, when they'd met at the Henderson merger celebration, he had been immediately drawn to her confidence, her independence, her complete lack of neediness. Everything he thought he wanted. I'm sorry, he said, reaching across the table to cover her hand with his. Long day. You know how it is with the Anderson acquisition. She studied his face with the same intensity she brought to evaluating fabric swatches. This isn't about work. I can tell the difference between your stressed face and your distracted face. This is definitely distracted. Marcus almost smiled despite himself. Victoria's directness was one of the things he appreciated about her. No games, no fishing for information she wanted. If she had a question, she asked it. There was someone I recognized earlier, he said carefully. Someone I haven't seen in a while. An XT for you. Yes. Victoria leaned back in her chair, swirling her wine thoughtfully. The ex? The one you were engaged to before we met? Marcus nodded. He had mentioned Sophia briefly early in their relationship, the way people do when explaining their romantic history. Nothing detailed, just the basic facts. They had wanted different things. The breakup had been amicable, they hadn't spoken since. And seeing her brought up feelings, it brought up questions. Victoria was quiet for a long moment, and Marcus could practically see her weighing her response. This was exactly the kind of emotional complexity he had been trying to avoid in his post-Sophia life. Victoria had every right to be upset, to demand explanations, to make this about their relationship. Instead, she surprised him. Do you want to talk about it? I'm not sure there's anything to talk about yet, but you think there might be. Marcus met her eyes. I don't know. Victoria nodded slowly. Okay. Well, when you figure it out, let me know if it affects us. Just acceptance that people have histories that sometimes resurface unexpectedly. So why did her understanding make him feel lonelier than if she had gotten angry? They finished the gala making small talk about her upcoming project and his company's expansion into international markets, professional topics that felt safe, familiar. When he dropped her off at her Gold Coast apartment, she kissed him lightly on the cheek. Take care of yourself, she said. Whatever this is, don't let it eat you alive. Marcus drove home to his penthouse in Streeterville, but instead of going upstairs, he found himself walking the empty streets along the lakefront. Chicago at night had always cleared his head. The combination of lake air and the energy of a city that never quite slept. But tonight his mind refused to quiet. The timing was impossible to ignore. If Sophia had been pregnant when they broke up and hadn't told him, why? If she had discovered it afterward, why hadn't she reached out? And if that little girl wasn't his, if the timing was just a cruel coincidence, why did the possibility feel like a physical ache in his chest? By the time he returned to his building, Marcus had made a decision he wasn't proud of. He called Daniel Foster, the private investigator his company used for due diligence on potential business partners. Daniel answered on the second ring despite the late hour. Marcus, what do you need? This is personal, not business. Even better, personal pays more. Marcus gave Daniel Sophia's full name and last known address, feeling like he was crossing a line he couldn't uncross. I need to know where she's living now, what she's been doing for the past 3 years. Specifically, I need to know about any children. Daniel was quiet for a moment. This is about an ex, yes, and you think she might have had your kid without telling you? I think I need to know for certain that she didn't. Fair enough. Give me 24 hours. After hanging up, Marcus stood in his living room, surrounded by the material evidence of his success. The floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of Lake Michigan. His furniture was custom-designed Italian leather. His art collection was worth more than most people's houses. Everything was exactly as he had wanted it. Clean, uncluttered, free of the domestic chaos he had once feared would suffocate him. But tonight the space felt vast and empty. He poured himself 3 fingers of Macallan 25 and settled into the leather chair where he usually reviewed investment portfolios. Instead, he found himself remembering details about Sophia he had tried to forget. The way she hummed while cooking, always the same song. At Last by Etta James, usually off-key but completely unself-conscious about it. How she kept a small notebook where she wrote down interesting words she encountered, claiming she was building her vocabulary for the novel she would never write. The careful way she organized her closet by color and season, spending hours rearranging until the composition satisfied some internal aesthetic he couldn't see but learned to appreciate. And the conversation they'd had 6 weeks before the breakup, when she'd mentioned her cousin's baby shower. Don't you ever wonder what it would be like? She had asked, watching him hold a colleague's baby at a company picnic. Having someone who's part of both of us. No, he had said, and meant it. I've worked too hard to build this life to complicate it now. She had nodded and changed the subject, but he remembered the brief shadow that crossed her face. At the time, he had attributed it to natural disappointment. Most women her age wanted children eventually. Now he wondered if it had been something more specific. Marcus's phone buzzed with a text from Victoria. Hope you're getting some answers. Sleep well. He stared at the message for a long time before responding. Thank you. But sleep felt impossible. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Sophia pausing in that crosswalk, bending down to listen to whatever her daughter was saying, laughing at something the child found delightful. She had looked different, not just because of motherhood, but because of a kind of peace he had never seen in her before. During their relationship, Sophia had always carried a slight tension, as if she were waiting for something. He had assumed it was career ambition or the normal stress of living in an expensive city. Now he wondered if she had been waiting for him to want the same things she did, And when it became clear that he never would, she had stopped waiting and started building the life she wanted without him. The thought should have brought relief. Instead, it felt like loss, not just of Sophia, but of possibilities he had been too afraid to consider. As dawn approached, Marcus made a decision that surprised him. Whatever Daniel discovered, however this played out, he wouldn't hide behind investigators and intermediaries. If that little girl was his, he would face it directly. The question was, what would he do then? Daniel Foster's office was located in a nondescript building in the West Loop, sandwiched between a craft brewery and a cow-working space that filled the hallway with the constant hum of entrepreneurial energy. Marcus had never been here before. Their previous business had always been conducted over secure phone calls and encrypted emails, but this felt too personal, too important for digital communication. Daniel was a man in his early 50s who looked like he could blend into any crowd. Average height, brown hair going gray at the temples. Clothes that were expensive enough to be respectable but unremarkable enough to be forgettable. It was exactly what made him excellent at his job. "I have what you asked for," Daniel said, sliding a manila folder across his desk. "But before you look at it, I need to ask, are you prepared for whatever's in here?" Marcus's hand hovered over the folder. 24 hours of waiting had felt like a lifetime. He had barely slept, had canceled 2 important meetings, and found himself driving past the Lincoln Park neighborhood 3 times looking for glimpses of chestnut hair and small children in lavender coats. "Just tell me." Daniel leaned back in his chair. Sophia Reynolds, 34 years old, currently residing at 2847 North Racine Avenue, apartment 2C. She works full-time as communications manager at Chicago Community Health Alliance. Single mother to 1 daughter, Lily Grace Reynolds. Born 3 years and 2 months ago at Northwestern Memorial Hospital. Marcus's breath caught. 3 years and 2 months. The timing was perfect or terrible, depending on how he looked at it. The father not listed on the birth certificate. Hospital records show she attended all prenatal appointments alone, listed herself as single, and declined to provide paternal information for medical history purposes. The words hit Marcus like physical blows. No father listed, all appointments alone. She had deliberately kept him out of every aspect of their daughter's existence. "There's more," Daniel continued. "Financial records show she's been supporting herself entirely. No mysterious deposits, no child support payments, no help from family beyond occasional gifts from her parents in Minnesota. She's been doing this completely on her own." Marcus opened the folder with trembling hands. Inside were photographs, surveillance shots that made him feel like a voyeur. But he couldn't stop looking. Sophia pushing a stroller through Lincoln Park, the little girl pointing excitedly at squirrels. Sophia at a pediatrician's office, juggling a diaper bag and paperwork with practiced efficiency. Sophia sitting in a coffee shop, laptop open, while her daughter colored quietly beside her, both of them sharing what appeared to be a chocolate muffin. But it was the last photograph that broke something inside him. Sophia was in what appeared to be her living room, sitting on the floor with her daughter. They were building something with blocks. A tower, maybe, or a castle. The little girl was laughing, her dark hair wild around her face, and Sophia was looking at her with an expression of such pure love that Marcus felt his chest constrict. It was the expression he had seen her wear exactly once during their relationship, when she'd held her newborn nephew at a family gathering. He had dismissed it then as typical feminine sentimentality. Now he recognized it as the look of someone who had found their purpose. "The child," Marcus said quietly. Does she look like anyone in particular?" Daniel studied Marcus's face carefully. "I'm not a geneticist, but the girl has some strong features that could be coincidental or could be inherited. Dark hair, strong jawline, certain expressions." Marcus closed the folder, his mind reeling. Everything he had built his life around, control, choice, careful planning, had been obliterated by a decision Sophia had made without him. She had known she was carrying his child and had chosen to raise her alone rather than complicate his carefully constructed freedom. The thought should have brought relief. Instead, it felt like betrayal and loss wrapped together in something he couldn't name. "There's one more thing," Daniel said. "She's been looking for a higher paying position. 3 interviews in the past 2 weeks, all for director-level roles that would pay significantly more than her current salary. My guess is the nonprofit income isn't covering expenses with a growing child. Preschool isn't cheap in this city. Money. Money. Of course, it came down to money eventually. Marcus's first instinct was cynical. Maybe Sophia's silence hadn't been about protecting him, but about positioning herself for a larger settlement later. But even as the thought formed, he dismissed it. The woman in those photographs, struggling with diaper bags, sharing chocolate muffins, building block towers on the floor, didn't look like someone playing a long game for financial gain. She looked like someone doing her best with an impossible situation. "I want you to stop the surveillance," Marcus said suddenly. "And I want all copies of these photos destroyed, everything. Digital files, prints, cloud backups. I want your word that this never happened." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "You sure? I could keep monitoring, let you know if—" "No, this isn't how I want to handle this. And Daniel? I need those photos destroyed before I leave here today." Daniel nodded slowly, understanding the gravity of the request. "Consider it done. Everything gets wiped clean." After leaving Daniel's office, Marcus drove aimlessly through the city, eventually ending up parked outside his office building. Through his car window, he could see his company logo etched in gold on the building's facade. Bennett Capital Partners. Everything he had worked for. Everything he had prioritized over personal relationships. Everything that had seemed so important just 2 days ago. His phone buzzed with a call from his business partner, James Mitchell. "Where have you been? The Anderson acquisition team is expecting your final review this afternoon." "Reschedule it." "We've been working toward this deal for 8 months. This could be the acquisition that puts us in competition with the major firms." I said reschedule it. There was silence on the line. Marcus had never in 12 years of partnership asked to postpone a major deal. "Everything okay? I need some time to handle a personal matter first." "You don't have personal matters." The comment stung because it was true. Marcus had spent the past 3 years constructing a life with no personal complications, no emotional entanglements that could interfere with his professional goals. It had seemed like wisdom at the time. Now it felt like cowardice. After hanging up, Marcus sat in his car for nearly an hour, watching people walk past on the sidewalk. Families, couples, individuals, all moving through their lives with purposes he couldn't see. For the first time in his adult life, he felt completely untethered from his own purpose. He thought about calling Sophia directly. There was no version of that conversation that didn't make him sound like either a stalker or an absent father who had no right to complain about being kept in the dark. But he couldn't pretend he didn't know. The knowledge sat in his chest like a weight, making every breath feel deliberate. His phone rang again. This time it was Victoria. "How are you holding up? I found out what I needed to know, and—" Marcus closed his eyes. "And now I have to figure out what to do about it." "Whatever it is, you don't have to figure it out alone. You know that, right?" But that was exactly wrong. This was something he did have to figure out alone, because any decision he made would affect 3 lives. His, Sophia's, and a little girl who had no voice in any of it. "I need to go." "Marcus, for what it's worth, you're a good person. Even when you're confused, you're good." After hanging up, Marcus started his car and drove toward Lincoln Park. He didn't have a plan, didn't know what he would say or do, but he couldn't spend another night knowing his daughter was 5 miles away, being raised by a woman who had chosen silence over asking for help. As he turned onto North Racine Avenue, Marcus realized that everything he thought he knew about himself, his priorities, his values, his capacity for love, was about to be tested in ways he had never imagined. The question wasn't whether he was ready. The question was whether he was brave enough to try. Marcus sat in his car across from 2847 North Racine Avenue for 45 minutes, watching the brick apartment building through the evening drizzle. The structure was well maintained but modest, with flower boxes in the windows and a small courtyard where someone had planted an herb garden between the walkway stones. It was exactly the kind of place Sophia would choose. Charming, practical, with touches of beauty that didn't cost much but meant everything. Apartment 2C had warm light glowing behind sheer curtains. Occasionally, a shadow moved past the window. Sophia, he assumed, going about the evening routine of caring for a 3-year-old. The domesticity of it, the quiet normalcy, made his chest tighten with something he couldn't name. 3 times he reached for the door handle. 3 times he stopped. What right did he have to disrupt the life she had built? She had made her choice deliberately, keeping him out. Not from cruelty, but from what she must have believed was kindness. She had known him well enough to understand that fatherhood wasn't something he wanted, and she had acted accordingly. But sitting here, knowing his daughter was upstairs, made Marcus realize that what he had thought he wanted and what he actually needed might be 2 entirely different things. His phone buzzed with a text from his assistant. Anderson acquisition rescheduled for Monday. They weren't happy but agreed to wait. Monday felt like it belonged to a different life. A life where his biggest concern was market share and investment returns. Not whether he had the courage to knock on a door and face the most important conversation of his existence. A movement caught his eye. The building's front door opened and Sophia emerged carrying a small bag of garbage. She wore jeans and an oversized sweater, her chestnut hair pulled back in a messy bun secured with what looked like a pencil. Even from across the street, Marcus could see the exhaustion in the way she moved, not the dramatic fatigue of someone seeking sympathy, but the bone-deep tiredness of someone pushing through because there was no other choice. She walked to the dumpster behind the building. Marcus found himself getting out of his car. By the time she turned around, he was standing 15 feet away on the sidewalk. Sophia froze, the color draining from her face. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The Chicago evening stretched between them, filled with the distant sounds of traffic and the soft patter of rain on fallen leaves. Marcus. Her voice was carefully neutral. What are you doing here? I saw you yesterday downtown. You were crossing the street. Her hand went instinctively to her throat, a gesture he remembered from their relationship whenever she was processing something difficult. I didn't see you. You were carrying a little girl. The words hung in the air between them like an accusation. Sophia's eyes didn't leave his face, but he could see her calculating, deciding how much truth this moment could hold. Yes, she said simply. Is she mine? The question came out harsher than he intended, but Sophia didn't flinch. She looked at him for a long moment, and Marcus saw something in her expression he had never seen before, a kind of protective fierceness that made her seem like an entirely different person from the woman he had lived with. What do you want me to say, Marcus? I want you to tell me the truth. The truth. Sophia's voice gained strength. The truth is that I'm raising a beautiful, healthy little girl. The truth is that she's happy and loved and doesn't lack for anything important. The truth is that her life is settled and peaceful, and I've worked very hard to make sure it stays that way. That's not what I asked. It's the only answer that matters. Marcus stepped closer, and he saw Sophia's shoulders tense. Not with fear. He had never given her reason to fear him, but with the kind of protective alertness he imagined came with motherhood. Don't I have a right to know if I'm a father? You have the right to live the life you chose, Sophia said quietly. The life you were very clear about wanting. No complications, no commitments, no children tying you down. The words were like physical blows, made worse because they were accurate. He had said those things, or versions of them, during their relationship. Whenever conversations turned toward the future, toward the kind of life Sophia had dreamed about, Marcus had been consistently, honestly resistant. People change, he said. Do they? Sophia's brown eyes searched his face. Or do they just have regrets when they see what they might have given up? From inside the building, a child's voice called out, Mama, where are you? Both Marcus and Sophia's heads turned toward the sound, but it was Sophia who moved first, her maternal instincts overriding everything else. I have to go, she said, already walking toward the building entrance. Wait, Marcus followed her. Please, just 5 minutes, let me see her. Sophia stopped with her hand on the door handle. Why? Because if she's mine, I need to know. I need to see her. And then what? You decide whether you want to be involved based on how you feel in the moment. You disrupt her routine, her sense of security, her understanding of her world, because you're curious? The child's voice grew more insistent. Mama, I hired a private investigator, Marcus said suddenly, the words spilling out before he could stop them. Sophia's entire body went still. What? I needed to know for sure about the timing, about everything. You had me followed. Her voice was barely above a whisper, but there was something dangerous in it. I needed to understand. You had me followed while I was caring for my daughter. She pulled her arm free from where he had instinctively reached toward her. Our daughter? No. No. Sophia's voice cut through the rain like a blade. My daughter. The daughter I carried alone, delivered alone, and have been raising alone while you've been living exactly the life you told me you wanted. She turned away from him, but Marcus spoke quickly. Sophia, please. I know I handled this wrong, but handled what wrong? She spun back to face him. You didn't handle anything. I handled everything. I made the decision not to tell you because I knew that you would do exactly this. Show up out of nowhere when it was convenient for you, expecting me to explain myself, expecting me to justify choices I made to protect everyone involved. The child was calling again, her voice wavering with anxiety. Mama, come back. Sophia looked toward the sound with obvious distress. I have to go to her. Let me come with you. Just to see her, just once. Sophia studied his face, and Marcus saw her weighing the request against everything she had worked to build and protect. Why now? She asked finally. Why, after more than 3 years of silence, do you suddenly care? It was a fair question, and Marcus realized he didn't have a good answer. Because he had seen her crossing the street and felt something break open inside him. Because his carefully constructed life had suddenly felt empty. Because he was finally brave enough to face what he had been running from. Because I think I've been running from the wrong things, he said finally. And I think you've been protecting me from something I needed to face. Sophia looked at him for a long moment, rain beginning to darken her sweater. Above them, her daughter's anxious calls continued, and Marcus could see her internal struggle. The mother who needed to comfort her child warring with the woman who had every right to tell him to leave and never come back. 5 minutes, she said finally. You can see her for 5 minutes and then you leave. And you think very carefully about what you actually want, not what you think you should want. Because I won't let you disrupt her life unless you're absolutely certain you're ready to be in it permanently. Marcus nodded, not trusting his voice. As Sophia unlocked the building door, she paused without looking at him. Her name is Lily, she said quietly. Lily Grace. She has your stubborn streak and your smile, and she is the best thing I've ever done with my life. The words hit Marcus like a revelation and a warning all at once. As they climbed the narrow stairs to the second floor, he realized he was about to meet his daughter for the first time, and possibly say goodbye to her forever, depending on whether he was brave enough to become the man she deserved to have as a father. The apartment was smaller than Marcus's walk-in closet, but every inch had been thoughtfully arranged. Soft lighting came from table lamps instead of overhead fixtures, creating pools of warmth throughout the space. Children's books were stacked on a coffee table made from reclaimed wood, and hand-painted butterflies decorated the wall above what he assumed was Lily's sleeping area. Mama. A small figure barreled toward them the moment they entered, wrapping her arms around Sophia's legs with fierce determination. You were gone forever. I was only gone 5 minutes, sweetheart. Sophia knelt down to her daughter's level, smoothing back wild dark hair that was so much like Marcus's that it made his breath catch. I just had to take the garbage out, but I missed you. Lily's voice was muffled against Sophia's shoulder. And Mr. Trunks missed you too. I missed you both very much. Sophia kissed the top of her daughter's head, then gently turned her to face Marcus. Lily, this is an old friend of Mama's. His name is Marcus. Lily looked up at him with wide brown eyes, Sophia's eyes, and the assessing gaze of a child trying to determine whether this newcomer was worth her attention. Hello, she said cautiously. Marcus knelt down, bringing himself to her level. His heart was pounding so hard he was sure it must be audible. This was his daughter, looking at him with curious suspicion and one hand still gripping Sophia's sweater for security. Hello, Lily. His voice came out rough. It's very nice to meet you. Are you staying for dinner? We're having chicken nuggets. Marcus looked at Sophia, who gave an almost imperceptible shake of her head. Not tonight, he said, but I hope I can visit again sometime. Do you like dinosaurs? Lily asked, apparently deciding this was the crucial qualifying question. Yes. Yes, I like dinosaurs. Good. Because Mr. Trunks likes dinosaurs too, but Mama says elephants and dinosaurs didn't live at the same time, which is silly because they would have been friends. I think you're right, Marcus said seriously. They definitely would have been friends. Lily's face broke into a smile, Marcus's smile he realized with a jolt, and she released her grip on Sophia's sweater just slightly. You should come see my dinosaurs, she said. I have 17, Mama counted. Lily, Sophia interjected gently. Remember how we talked about visitors? Marcus is just stopping by for a few minutes, but he hasn't seen my dinosaurs, Lily protested. He needs to see the T-Rex. It's the best one. Marcus looked at Sophia, silently asking permission. After a moment's hesitation, she nodded. 5 minutes to see the dinosaurs, she said. Then it's bath time. Lily grabbed Marcus's hand, such a small hand, so trusting, and began pulling him toward her room. Come on, come on. The T-Rex is green, but I wanted a purple one, except Mama said they didn't have purple at the store. Maybe for your next birthday, Marcus said, allowing himself to be led. That's what Mom always says. Lily's room was small but magical, fairy lights strung around the window, glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling, and the promised collection of plastic dinosaurs arranged in careful rows on a low shelf. This is my collection, Lily said proudly. I organized them by size. The big ones are in the back so the little ones can see. He's very impressive. Do you want to hold him? Marcus accepted the dinosaur carefully as if it were made of precious glass. Thank you, Lily. You're welcome. She studied him with that assessing gaze again. You have the same hair as me. Marcus's throat tightened. I noticed that too. Mama says I have special hair because it does whatever it wants. My hair is the same way. Lily considered this information seriously. Maybe we got it from the same place. Out of the mouths of babes, Marcus thought. Maybe we did. Lily, Sophia appeared in the doorway. Bath time. Say goodbye to Marcus. But he just got here, Lily protested. I'll come back, Marcus said, the promise escaping before he could consider whether it was wise. If that's okay with your mama, I'd really like to visit again. Lily looked at Sophia hopefully. Can he, Mama? Can he come back? Sophia's expression was unreadable, but after a long moment she nodded. We'll talk about it. Now say goodbye. Goodbye, Marcus. Lily surprised him by stepping forward and wrapping her arms around his legs in a quick hug. You can come see my other dinosaurs next time. I have more at Grandma's house. I'd like that very much. Sophia led him back to the living room while Lily headed toward the bathroom, already chattering about which bath toys she wanted to play with. She's incredible, Marcus said quietly. I know. Sophia, Not now, Sophia. Sophia's voice was firm but not unkind. She'll be in the bath for 20 minutes. I'll meet you at the coffee shop on the corner after I put her to bed. 9 o'clock. We need to talk without her present. Marcus nodded, understanding. Some conversations weren't meant to happen in front of children. I'll be there. As he left the apartment, Marcus looked back one more time to see Sophia standing in the doorway, her expression a complicated mixture of fear, hope, and fierce protective love. He had missed 3 years of his daughter's life. The question now was whether he could find a way to be part of the rest of it. The coffee shop on the corner was quiet at 9 o'clock. A few college students with laptops, a couple sharing dessert, the ambient sounds of an espresso machine and soft jazz. Marcus had arrived 30 minutes early and was on his second cup of coffee, the caffeine doing nothing to calm his racing thoughts. When Sophia walked in, she looked different than she had earlier. Calmer, more composed, as if the ritual of putting her daughter to bed had centered her. She ordered a tea and sat across from him, her hands wrapped around the warm cup. Lily's asleep, Marcus asked. Finally, she had questions about you, who you were, why you came, when you'd be back. Sophia's voice was neutral. I told her you were an old friend who wanted to meet her. That's true in a way. In a way. Sophia looked at him directly. Marcus, what do you actually want? It was the question he had been asking himself for 3 days. What did he want? To assuage his guilt about missed years, to prove he was capable of something beyond business success, to experience the love he had seen in Sophia's eyes when she looked at their daughter. I want to know her, he said finally. I want to be part of her life. And what does that look like to you? Weekend visits when it's convenient? Birthday presents shipped from wherever your latest deal takes you? A college fund that makes you feel like you've done your part? The words stung because they described exactly what his initial instinct had been: to participate from a comfortable distance, to provide financial support without the messy emotional commitment of actual fatherhood. No, he said, that's not what I mean. Then what do you mean? Marcus struggled to find words for feelings he had never allowed himself to examine. Tonight, when she hugged me, I felt something I've never felt before, like a door opened to a part of myself I didn't know existed. That's beautiful, Sophia said, and her voice softened slightly. But feelings aren't the same as commitment. Lily is 3 years old. She's going to need school pickups and homework help and someone to coach her soccer team when she's 7. She's going to need a father who shows up for the boring parts, not just the magical moments. I understand that. Do you? Sophia leaned forward. Because 3 years ago you told me very clearly that you didn't want this life. You said children would complicate your work, drain your energy, tie you down to a domesticity you'd resent. You were honest about it, and I appreciated that honesty enough to make my decisions accordingly. I was wrong. You were honest. There's a difference. What if I was honestly wrong? Sophia sat back, considering him. People don't change overnight, Marcus. You saw your daughter for 5 minutes and you're suddenly ready to restructure your entire existence? That sounds like guilt, not transformation. Maybe it started as guilt, Marcus admitted. But tonight, watching her explain her dinosaur collection, hearing her laugh at her own jokes, it became something else. I don't know what to call it, but I know I don't want to walk away from it. And Victoria? Your business? Everything you've built? No. I ended things with Victoria on the way here. It was true. He had called her from the car, explained as much as he could, and she had accepted it with the same grace she brought to everything. The business can run without me micromanaging every decision. I've been building a team for years specifically so I could eventually step back. Eventually doesn't sound like now. Maybe eventually is closer than I thought. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of the conversation settling between them. Sophia, Marcus said finally, I know I can't undo the last 3 years. I know you've done everything alone, and you've done it beautifully. Lily is happy, healthy, curious, confident. That's because of you. All of it. Thank you for saying that. But I want to be part of what comes next. Not to take over, not to change what you've built, but to add to it. To be someone she can count on. And what about us? Sophia asked quietly. What do you mean? I mean that raising a child together is complicated when there's history, when there are old wounds that never quite healed. Are you prepared to navigate that? Marcus looked at her, really looked at her for the first time since he'd sat down. She was beautiful, yes, but more than that, she was strong in a way he hadn't recognized when they were together. The woman who had been waiting for him to want the same thing she did had stopped waiting and built something magnificent without him. I'm prepared to try, he said, if you'll let me. Sophia was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. I used to dream about this conversation. During my pregnancy, during the newborn phase, when I was so tired I couldn't see straight, I would imagine you showing up, saying exactly the right things, making everything easier. I'm sorry I wasn't there. I'm not finished. She held up a hand. I used to dream about it, and then I stopped. Because the reality is, Marcus, I built a life without you. A good life, a stable life. Lily and I are happy. We're okay. I know you are. So what you're asking me to do is risk that stability, the stability I fought so hard for. On the chance that you mean what you're saying, that you won't disappear when it gets hard, that you won't resent us when your business suffers or your social life evaporates, or you realize that parenting is exhausting and thankless and constant. You're asking me to trust you, Marcus said, after I gave you every reason not to. Yes, that's fair. He reached across the table, and when she didn't pull away, took her hand. Sophia, I can't promise I'll be perfect. I can't promise I won't make mistakes. But I can promise that I will show up every day in whatever way you need me to. I will do the work of earning your trust and earning Lily's love. That's a big promise. I know, but I've spent my whole life making promises to investors, to partners, to people who measure success by numbers. Maybe it's time to make promises to people who measure success by showing up. Sophia looked at their joined hands, then back at his face. We start slow, she said finally. Supervised visits. No promises to Lily about the future. If she asks who you are, we tell her you're a friend. For now, agreed. And we get her into therapy, a child psychologist who can help her process whatever feelings come up as you become more present in her life. Of course, and Marcus. Sophia's grip tightened on his hand. If you hurt her, if you walk away after she learns to love you, I will never forgive you. And you will never forgive yourself. I know. She studied his face for a long moment, looking for something. Whatever she found seemed to satisfy her because she finally nodded. Okay, she said. Let's try. 3 months into their tentative new arrangement, Marcus discovered that fatherhood was nothing like running an investment firm. Children, he learned, did not respond to quarterly projections, efficiency protocols, or logical reasoning. They responded to patience he didn't know he possessed in love. He was still learning how to express. She's been asking for you all day, Sophia said, meeting him at the door of her apartment. The circles under her eyes suggested another difficult night, but there was warmth in her voice that hadn't been there 3 months ago. Something about a promise to build a blanket fort? I said we could try, Marcus corrected, hanging his coat on the hook that had somehow become his. Is that okay? I don't want to overstep, Sophia touched his arm briefly. You're allowed to make plans with your daughter. Your daughter. The words still sent a thrill through him every time. Daddy. Lily came barreling down the hallway and launched herself at his legs. The word had appeared organically 3 weeks ago, when Sophia had finally explained to Lily that Marcus wasn't just a friend, he was her father. Lily had considered this information with the solemnity of a Supreme Court justice, then asked if daddies liked chicken nuggets too. Hey, sweetheart. Marcus scooped her up, marveling as he did every time at how perfectly she fit in his arms. Are you ready for fort construction? I got all the pillows. Lily squirmed to get down, and Mr. Trunks is going to be the guard. Come see. As Lily dragged him toward the living room, Marcus caught Sophia's eye. She was smiling. Really smiling. Not the careful, guarded expression she had worn during their early visits. I was thinking, she said, following them, maybe we could all have dinner together tonight, if you don't have plans. They had been cautious about this. Meals together, activities as a unit. But Lily's therapist, Dr. Patterson, had said she was adjusting beautifully, that her sense of security had actually increased with Marcus's consistent presence. I'd love that, Marcus said. The blanket fort took an hour to build. Marcus had never constructed anything so inefficient or so satisfying in his life. Lily directed operations with the confidence of a seasoned general, positioning pillows and draping blankets until she declared the structure perfect. Now we need snacks, she said seriously. Forts need snacks. I'll get crackers, Sophia offered. You two get comfortable. Inside the fort, illuminated by the flashlight Lily had insisted on, Marcus found himself lying on his stomach while his daughter arranged her dinosaur collection for what she called a meeting. Rex has something important to say, Lily announced, holding up the green T-Rex. He says he's glad you came back. Marcus's throat tightened. I'm glad I came back too, he says, Lily's small face scrunched in concentration. He says sometimes daddies go away, but the best daddies come back. Like in the dinosaur book Mama read me. Marcus didn't know what dinosaur book she was referring to, but he understood what she was really saying. I'm not going away again, he told her, meeting her eyes with the same seriousness she was giving him. I promise. Pinky promise? He extended his pinky, and she wrapped hers around it with the gravity of someone sealing a sacred pact. Pinky promise. Later, after crackers in the fort and dinosaur stories and a bath during which Marcus got thoroughly splashed and Lily laughed harder than he'd ever heard her, they sat together for dinner. Lily insisted on sitting between her parents, carefully supervising the distribution of mac and cheese. Daddy needs more, she said, spooning extra onto Marcus's plate. Daddies need lots of food because they're bigger. Thank you, sweetheart. You're welcome. She beamed at him with Sophia's eyes and his own smile. and Marcus felt his heart crack open a little wider. After Lily was in bed, 3 stories, 2 glasses of water, 1 final bathroom trip, and a lengthy negotiation about whether Mr. Trunks could stay up later, Marcus and Sophia sat on the couch with glasses of wine. "She asked me today if you were going to live with us," Sophia said quietly. Marcus turned to look at her. "What did you tell her?" "I told her that's something you and I need to talk about." "And is it something we should talk about?" Sophia was quiet for a long moment. 3 months of watching Marcus show up. 3 months of canceled business calls and rescheduled meetings so he could make it to preschool performances and doctor's appointments. 3 months of him learning to change the sheets when Lily had an accident and knowing exactly how she liked her toast cut. "Maybe," she said finally. "Not yet, but maybe." It was more than Marcus had dared to hope for. "I found a house," he said. "Not far from here. 4 bedrooms, a yard, good schools nearby." Sophia looked at him sharply. "Marcus, not for us to move into together." "Not yet," he held up a hand. "But I want to be closer. My penthouse is 40 minutes away in traffic, and every minute I spend driving is a minute I could be spending with Lily, with both of you." "You'd move? For her. I'd move for both of you, in a heartbeat." Sophia set down her wine glass and turned to face him fully. "3 months ago you told me people could change. I wasn't sure I believed you. And now," she reached out and touched his face gently. "Now I think maybe I was the one who needed to change. I spent so long protecting myself from disappointment that I almost couldn't see when something good was right in front of me." Marcus covered her hand with his. "Sophia, let me finish." She took a breath. "I've been talking to Dr. Patterson too, not just about Lily, but about us. About whether I've been using Lily as a shield to keep you at a distance. Have you? Maybe. A little." She smiled ruefully. "It's easier to focus on what you can do for her than to think about what you might mean to me. And what might I mean to you?" The question hung between them, loaded with 3 years of silence and 3 months of careful rebuilding. "Everything," Sophia whispered. "If I let you." Marcus leaned forward slowly, giving her every opportunity to pull away. When she didn't, he kissed her, gently, tentatively, like a question rather than a statement. She answered by kissing him back. From the hallway, a small voice called out, "Mama, I need water again." They broke apart, laughing softly. "Duty calls," Sophia said, but she was smiling. "I'll get it." Marcus stood. "I need to practice being on water duty." As he walked toward Lily's room, he heard Sophia's voice behind him. "The house you found. Does it have a yard big enough for a swing set?" Marcus paused, his heart full to bursting. "It does," he said. "And a garden. I thought maybe we could plant flowers together, the 3 of us. I think Lily would love that. And you." Sophia's smile was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. "I think I'd love it too." 6 months after that first kiss, on a Saturday morning that had started like any other, Marcus woke up in the house in Lincoln Park. The house that had become home for all of them, to the sound of Lily's footsteps racing down the hallway. "Daddy, Daddy, wake up. You promised pancakes." Marcus groaned dramatically even as he smiled. Beside him, Sophia laughed and buried her face in her pillow. "Your daughter is awake," she mumbled. "Before 7 a.m., she's your daughter," Marcus countered. But he was already throwing back the covers. The kitchen was chaos within minutes. Lily standing on her special helper stool, supervising the pancake batter while simultaneously trying to feed bits of banana to Marcus's feet. Mr. Trunks had a place of honor on the counter, where Lily had insisted he could watch and learn. "Daddy, you're doing it wrong," Lily announced as Marcus attempted to flip a pancake. "What's wrong with it? It's not shaped like a dinosaur." Marcus looked at the perfectly round pancake in the pan, then at his daughter's expectant face. "You're absolutely right," he said seriously. Rookie mistake. 20 minutes later, they had a stack of vaguely dinosaur-shaped pancakes, a kitchen covered in flour, and Sophia had emerged in her robe to survey the damage. "I see breakfast was a success," she said dryly. "The best success," Lily confirmed. "Daddy made a T-Rex and a long neck and a—" "What's the one with the bumpy head, Pachycephalosaurus?" "Yeah, that one." Sophia caught Marcus's eye over Lily's head and smiled, the smile that had become his favorite thing in the world, the smile that said, "We built this together." Lily, sweetheart, Marcus said, keeping his voice casual even as his heart started racing. Do you remember what you asked me a few weeks ago? About whether Mama and I were going to get married? Lily's eyes went wide. Yeah, well, I've been thinking about that. And I think it's a pretty important question. So important that maybe we should all decide together. He pulled the small velvet box from his robe pocket. He had been carrying it for 3 days, waiting for the right moment. What do you think, Lily? Should I ask Mama to marry me? Yes, Lily shrieked, bouncing on her stool. Say yes, Mama, say yes. Marcus turned to Sophia, who had tears streaming down her face. Sophia Reynolds, he said, sinking to one knee right there in the flour-dusted kitchen. 3 years and 9 months ago, I made the biggest mistake of my life by letting you go. 6 months ago, you gave me a second chance I didn't deserve. Every day since then, you've shown me what love actually looks like. Not the easy, uncomplicated version I thought I wanted, but the real thing. The messy, beautiful, terrifying, wonderful thing that makes life worth living. Marcus, I'm not done. He opened the box to reveal a simple solitaire diamond. Elegant, understated, perfect for her. I promise to show up. Every day for the rest of our lives. For pancake breakfasts and homework battles and teenage drama, and everything else that comes with building a family. I promise to love you, both of you, with everything I have. Say yes, Mama. Lily was practically vibrating with excitement. Sophia laughed through her tears. Yes, she said. Yes, absolutely yes. Marcus slid the ring onto her finger, then stood and pulled her into his arms. Lily immediately demanded to be included, and they stood there in the mess of their kitchen, the three of them wrapped around each other, and Marcus thought, this is what success looks like. Not the penthouse or the portfolio or the professional accolades. This, right here, his family. 2 years later, on a Saturday morning that had started like any other, the house in Lincoln Park was orchestrated pandemonium. Lily, now 5 years old, sat at the kitchen table working on a drawing with the intense concentration of a future artist. Her dark hair, still as wild as ever, was barely contained by the butterfly clips Sophia had wrestled into it an hour ago. Daddy, look, she held up the paper. It's our family. Marcus set down his coffee and studied the drawing seriously. 4 figures stood in front of a house, a tall one with dark scribbled hair, him, a medium one with long brown hair, Sophia, a smaller one with wild dark hair and butterfly clips, Lily, and a tiny one in what appeared to be a bundle of blankets. That's beautiful, sweetheart. But who's the little one? Lily rolled her eyes with the drama only a 5-year-old could muster. That's the baby, Daddy. Duh. The baby, the one in Mama's tummy. Obviously. Marcus's gaze shot to Sophia, who had frozen in the act of pouring orange juice. Her cheeks flushed pink. Lily, sweetheart, why don't you go wash up for breakfast, as Sophia said quickly. And take Mr. Trunks. He looks like he needs a morning walk around your room. Okay. Lily scooped up her faithful companion and bounded out of the kitchen. The moment she was gone, Marcus crossed to Sophia and took her hands. Is it true? Sophia's eyes filled with tears, the happy kind he had learned to tell the difference. I was going to tell you this morning. I just found out yesterday, but then Lily had her dance recital and you had that call with the Tokyo office, and Marcus kissed her, stopping the flow of words. We're having another baby, he whispered against her lips. We're having another baby. Later that morning, as they sat on the back porch watching Lily attempt to teach the neighbor's cat about dinosaurs, Marcus reflected on the journey that had brought them here. 2 years of marriage, 2 years of building something he had never known he wanted. 2 years of learning that the things he had been afraid of, domesticity, commitment, the beautiful chaos of family life, were actually the things that made him feel most alive. You know, Sophia said, leaning against his shoulder, sometimes I think about that day you saw me crossing the street. If you had been looking at your phone, or if I had crossed at a different time, but I wasn't and you didn't. But what if? Marcus considered the question. What if he had missed that moment? What if he had driven past without recognizing her? He would still be living his old life, successful, uncomplicated, and utterly empty. I think I would have found my way back to you eventually, he said. Some things are meant to be. That's very romantic. I have my moments. Daddy. Lily came racing across the yard. The cat doesn't believe me about the T-Rex, so you have to come explain. Marcus stood brushing grass off his jeans. Duty calls, always. Sophia smiled up at him. That's what I love about you. As Marcus allowed himself to be dragged toward the fence where a dubious tabby cat awaited dinosaur education, he thought about all the versions of his life he might have lived. The bachelor in the penthouse, the businessman married to his work, the man who thought success meant having complete control over his environment. None of those versions had known what he knew now, that the best parts of life couldn't be controlled or planned or optimized. They could only be embraced. Daddy, Lily said seriously, positioning him next to the fence, you have to use your important voice so Mr. Whiskers knows you're telling the truth. My important voice? The one you use when you're being serious, like when you told me you pinky promised. Marcus got down on his knees beside the fence, meeting the skeptical gaze of Mr. Whiskers the tabby cat. Mr. Whiskers, he said in his most solemn CEO tone, I can personally assure you that Tyrannosaurus Rex was one of the most fearsome predators in Earth's history. My daughter is a leading expert in the field of dinosaur studies, and I suggest you listen carefully to what she has to say. Lily beamed. Mr. Whiskers yawned and wandered away. I think he believed you, Lily said optimistically. I think you're right. From the porch, Marcus heard Sophia laugh. That same laugh he had first fallen in love with. The laugh he got to hear every single day now. Some stories end with dramatic declarations of love or grand gestures that change everything in a single moment. But this story ended the way the best love stories do, with the promise of countless ordinary days ahead, each one an opportunity to choose each other again. The backyard was full of people, relatives, friends, colleagues from both Marcus's company and Sophia's organization, children running in chaotic circles, and one very patient golden retriever named Maple, who had joined the family 3 years ago at Lily's insistent request. 10 years, Marcus said, standing at the edge of the chaos with a glass of champagne in his hand. Can you believe it? Sophia slipped her arm through his. Sometimes, other times it feels like we just started. Their 10th anniversary party had been Lily's idea. She was 10 now, with opinions about everything and the confidence to express them. She was currently supervising the other children in some elaborate game that seemed to involve the dinosaur collection she had never outgrown and a complicated point system no adult could follow. Daddy, a small body collided with Marcus's legs. Jack, their son, was 5 years old and had inherited his father's intensity and his mother's determination. Lily says I can't be on the dinosaur team because I'm too little, but I'm not too little, tell her. I'll handle it, Marcus said solemnly. Justice will be served. As he waded into the fray to negotiate between his children, Sophia watched him with the same wonder she had felt since the beginning. The man who had once been afraid of domesticity now dove into family chaos with enthusiasm. The businessman who had prioritized work above everything now routinely missed meetings to attend school plays. The bachelor who had thought children would tie him down had discovered that they actually set him free. Beautiful party. Victoria appeared at Sophia's elbow. They had become unlikely friends over the years, bonded by mutual respect and the understanding that sometimes people come into our lives to lead us exactly where we need to go. Thank you for coming. Wouldn't miss it. Marcus looks happy. He is. He is. Sophia watched her husband attempt to mediate dinosaur diplomacy while simultaneously preventing Maple from stealing hot dogs off the grill. We all are. Later that evening, after the guests had gone and the children were finally asleep, a process that had required 4 bedtime stories, 2 glasses of water, 1 lengthy debate about whether dinosaurs could fly, and a negotiation about who got to sleep with Maple. Marcus and Sophia sat on the back porch in the quiet. Do you ever regret it? Marcus asked. The way things happened, the years we lost. Sophia was quiet for a long moment. Sometimes, she admitted. But mostly I think we weren't ready yet. Both of us had to become the people we needed to be. You were already the person you needed to be? No. She shook her head. I was afraid. Afraid to ask for what I wanted. Afraid to believe I deserved a partner who would show up completely. You taught me that. I thought you taught me that. Maybe we taught each other. They sat in comfortable silence, watching fireflies blink across the darkening yard. I love this life, Marcus said finally. I love who I am when I'm with you, all of you, even at 3 a.m. when someone has a nightmare, especially then. Sophia laughed and leaned against his shoulder. Finest Eeyore. You've come a long way from the man who was afraid of complications. Turns out complications are the best part. From inside the house, a small voice called out, Daddy, I need another glass of water. Marcus stood, dropping a kiss on Sophia's head. Duty calls, he said. Always, she replied. Solid. That's what I love about us. Looking back, would you have made the same choice Marcus did? Restructuring your entire life for love and family, even when it meant giving up the independence and control you thought defined you. Your participation means a lot to the channel. Please share your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the story, please subscribe to Moments with Her and leave a comment below letting us know what you thought. Your feedback and support mean everything to us. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so you never miss another story. Where are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments. We love seeing how far our stories travel. Rate this story from 0 to 10 and share what you felt along the way. Stay tuned for more emotional stories filled with twists, hidden truths, and the transformative power of love.